Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with my buddy Clark Lunt, old friend. We're going to talk about some challenges today. So we were talking about, you guys might expect every show we do, we always talk up front about what are we going to talk about, right? And I'm generally agnostic. I just want to hang out with my friends and meet some new people sometimes, and then also talk about what they're passionate about. And what we came up with today was to talk about just challenges, and not massive challenges that necessarily that Clark's overcome, but just a bunch of pivots and things he's had to make over the past few years, which I think will resonate with a lot of people listening to this. Is just like kind of in the moment, you're in these challenges and you're kind of stuck, and how do you get out, and a little bit about how kind of Clark's got out or is getting out. And so I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. So Clark, good to see you, bud.
Mike, it's great to see you, man. It's been a while. I know that you were on our show last week, but before that, it had been a couple of years. And, I always enjoyed following you, and I've been following you for God, at least a decade now, if not more. So yeah, it's great to be on here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you're here. And it was cool to be on your show last week. It's kind of funny in the podcast world. There's a lot of podcasters that when you ask somebody to be on their show, they're like, will you be on mine? And we just kind of do a swap basically.
Right.
So that's always fun. Sometimes they do them back to back. So that's efficient, but doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, I don't know. It tends to get a little bit stale because you're like, wait, did I say it on this podcast or the last one? Whatever it looked like. So that's not quite as what I like to do.
Yeah. Hey, before we jump into talking about some of these things, maybe just tell us a little bit about your background and some of your backstory a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll keep it short too. I'm not going to give you like a 30-minute monologue about my backstory, but I grew up, I've got a background in sales, Mike. Graduated from Oklahoma State in 2005, which makes me 41 years old. So I'm not getting any younger. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I got a degree in broadcasting, which didn't use that whatsoever. But ironically, now I sit on a podcast. So it's funny how life comes full circle.
Right.
But did the W-2 sales thing for about 8 or 9 years. 2015, bought like a real estate franchise. Ran that for 5 or 6 years. Bought a couple of those in different locations in Florida. That's where I kind of cut my teeth in fixing and flipping, wholesaling, starting to really ramp up buying rental properties. And then left the franchise, got a new partner, tried to do it for a year where I was just on my own. And that was less fun. I didn't enjoy that very much because you're kind of wearing all the hats and there's not really anyone to talk to. So it's a bit lonely. In 2022, partnered with kind of my existing partner now. We have a podcast together. And we bought some real estate together, did some flips. And then again, in 2022, when the market started to shift, I don't know if you may have heard, interest rates ticked up just a hair in 2022, 2023. We had a business model, Mike, where we did turnkey rentals to a group out of California. And we got to the point where we couldn't sell them where they made any money. So that kind of burned our boats a little bit. And so I've been kind of wandering around, pivoting a little bit, trying to figure out what the next step is. And that's where I'm at today, Mike.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about some kind of pivots you've made or that people make too. I want to, we're going to talk about changes that people needed to make. I'll say there's probably, everybody's different. There's some different driving forces. Like sometimes there's, macroeconomic things that drive your decisions, like interest rate changes that have, the economy drives a lot of our changes. And then sometimes there's personal shifts too, right? You're just like, I don't like to do this anymore. Maybe I've done a bunch of it and I hate it. Or you're just not good at something, right? So sometimes I think, for both of us that have been doing this for a while, there's things that I made a lot of money doing, but I didn't necessarily like it. And there's things that I do now that maybe I don't make a whole lot of money doing it, but I love it. So I'm going to do it anyway, right? And so I think it really takes like a lot of runway to figure that out. Sometimes a shorter runway, but it just takes time to say like, this is cool, but I don't like it, or I'm not good at it, or I don't want to do it for one reason or another. And so for those listening right now, it could be pivots you were forced to make with the economy, or it could be things that you just like, you know what, I tried this for a little while and I don't really enjoy it. I'm not very good at it, and therefore I'm not going to do it anymore. Which sometimes is tough when you make when you make decent money because you're like, eh.
Right.
Sometimes you kind of sell out to yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
you might have to. But so you obviously used to fix and flip a lot, and
Yep.
so what are some changes that you are making or have kind of made along those lines?
So when COVID hit, so when I was full time fixing and flipping and wholesaling from 2015 and 2020, it was interesting because the competition was in my backyard, right? It was like the guys and girls I saw at the Rio meetings, and the people you'd see at the coffee shops, and then once 2020 hit, COVID hit, a lot of things went virtual, right? We're all taking Zoom calls with sellers, we're docu signing contracts, and it became much more of a virtual thing, right? And that enabled a lot of people to come into the market and start, living in their hometown of, Nebraska, yet they're competing with me in Tampa, right? Which is where I live and work. And so there became a lot more competition. And so that started to change a little bit. And, any time that I've learned is that I don't know of, and I'll ask this question to you too, Mike, is like, how many fix and flip companies do you know that are really well designed so that they have like levels of management, right? So they actually have like a CEO, then they have like managers that manage like the contractors and the employees. I don't know about you, but I don't know that many, right? I know a lot of people where they're the manager, they do have employees and they have VAs and things like that, but they don't really have that. They're not a CEO. They're just kind of working in their business. And I started to see that and I'm like, you've got so much money that's out all the time, right? You're always taking the profit from deal A and quickly throwing it on deal B. So there's always money out there. You're not really running a business, you're just running a really good job. So I noticed that when COVID started to happen, I'm like, oh man, this is getting a little bit more difficult. I'm not enjoying it as much. Then 2022 hit with the interest rates, and I'm like, now our business model of selling turnkey rentals, now there's no cash flow that we're selling. So now we got to sell appreciation only. And I'm like, I don't know if this industry is really what it's changed and evolved, and it's not something that I just enjoy anymore.
Yeah, it's you got to enjoy it. I mean, there's people like
Yeah.
I've, you're right. I know people that have large operations, but it's mostly, you know, I usually compare this to kind of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, right? So there's a ton
Yeah,
of people that
exactly.
are self-employed. They might have a good business to make a lot of money, or they have a business, but we usually don't have redundancy. So you've got, let's say you have a construction manager or a project manager or a couple of them, but if you lose one, like as the owner, you often get pulled back in, right?
Immediately.
And you're, I have a good friend that spoke at Investor Fuel a while back, and he talked about this phenomenon that as CEOs of our companies, like we often are doing the job of the people that weren't able to do it. Like we're not necessarily doing what we're great at or what we thrive at, but we're doing the job that nobody else could do as well as us. Or
Right.
if somebody gets hit by a truck or quits or
Yeah.
sick or whatever, we're doing their job. And so he's like, that's not, of course, his take was that's not how it should be, but that is often how it is
Yeah.
because we're just, you know, we're the captain of the boat and we're the one filling the holes in the boat. Like, right?
I always say like I'm the CEO of my company and I'm the janitor all in the same day, right? So I'm
Yeah.
cleaning toilets one minute, and I think one of my challenges, it's humbling to have to like identify it, but like to be a really good leader, right? To be able to attract people and lead them properly is a very highly desired skill set. I'm just not a great leader, right? It's hard for me to attract really good talent, keep them, pay them well, and it's not because I don't want to, it's just because it's very difficult, right? And I'm sure a lot of listeners here on your show can kind of understand that it's like I just want to go out and close deals, right? Just give me the next seller to talk to and I'll talk to them all day long. Let's close it. But in terms of being able to figure out how to incentivize and put the systems in place is very difficult for me. And but also too is like seeing the fact that there's so many other people out there that are running these companies and they're good jobs, and I'm like, I don't think I'm not going to be the Mark Zuckerberg of fixing and flipping houses. Like you just said, I'm sure you have operators that are the Mark Zuckerberg, and it's not going to be me, right? So it's like, it's time for me to kind of look to point the fire hose in a slightly different direction.
Right. So I know, some of your pivots and some of what you've done and some of what you're trying to do more of, but what would be common in our industry is that a lot of people are like, they just shift back into more wholesaling. And then something changes, usually in the macro economy, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to shift back to doing more rehabbing because interest rates came down,
Right.
or I have more access to capital, or I'm not getting as many deals, and I make twice as much on each rehab. So let me just kind of the pendulum." In my life, it's the same way. Like sometimes almost everything I do is an extreme. Like I have an idea, and then I take it to the extreme, and then it might work, or I might
Right.
very soon after just stop doing it completely or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But so you kind of, pivoted away from doing as many fix and flips. And I know you do some lending and some other things, but are there
Right.
any, kind of, what did you pivot towards, would you say?
So, I think that the number one thing that we have right now, the number one thing that is most important for, let's say, 2025, in my opinion, is attention, right? Is eyeballs, right? It's like brand building. So, if you have a brand and people respect you and trust you, right? Like you have a huge following, Mike, right? So if you wanted to go lend money or raise capital for this multifamily syndication or to run a debt fund, right? Because you have the following, it's going to be easier, right? People are going to come to you. You're not going to necessarily have to go cold call a list of everyone that has that fits that criteria. And so I think that the part of the pivot is being able to get out there, get uncomfortable, right? I don't enjoy walking around on a Sunday on a sidewalk telling you about the deal that I did or that. It's not something that I naturally like to do. And I think a lot of people are the similar ways. But in some degree, it is something that I think is necessary as the industry has evolved as a whole to be able to say, look, guys, I'm Clark Lunt. I'm in Tampa, Florida. I raise capital. I'm doing this, this, and this. If you're interested, let's have a chat to see if we can work together, right? If you're not interested in doing that yourself, right? So I think a bit of a pivot was just getting uncomfortable, getting in front of a camera, starting a podcast, putting stuff out on YouTube. I enjoy talking about it, but the everything behind it, I'm less enjoying of it. So I think that's one pivot, Mike, is to just get uncomfortable, start getting on camera and telling people what you do. It's not super complicated.
Yep. Yep. So, you were buying, we were talking about this before, buying a bunch of rentals. We have about portfolios around the same size. And a lot of them are mine are yours are probably it sounds like yours are probably the same. I have a lot of B minus and C
Yep.
level
Yep.
properties, like squarely in the very blue collar areas of
Yep.
the DFW area for me. And I think I got to a point to where I was like, so they're you like love them or hate them, right? And usually it's in the same day. You love them and hate them, right? You're like, I'm gonna sell them all. Oh, these
Yeah.
things are doing all right.
Yeah.
So, I think for me it was realizing I got up to a certain number of rentals, uh, and I didn't like them for a long time. And I was like, wow, these things are, it just takes the perspective of time to kind of see the value of it. But when I got to a certain point, I was like, you know what, man, I wish I had 10x as many as
Yeah.
these now. But I knew how much work it would take to go buy them the way that I did before, one at a time,
Right.
stuffing one away every once in a while. And that's when I shifted into kind of multifamily because I was like, okay, I can move the needle a lot faster by doing this and partner with people in syndications and stuff where
Right.
I'm not doing it all. It's a team effort to do it, and I just have a very specific role that I can pick what I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
I know you've obviously done some multifamily stuff as well. So same type of thing. Is that your pivot point?
Yeah, I think, I was sharing the story with you, and I'll share it on here. Is that let's say I've got about 40 doors. It's just a hodgepodge of C plus, B minus, got some B plusers in there. Probably started as C plus, and over the last 6, 7 years have like evolved into a B plus or an A minus. And I've also got some C pluses that started as C pluses, and they're still C plus, like it's frozen in freaking time.
Right.
So those are the ones where it's like I think being able to look at your portfolio and constantly evaluating the bottom 20%, to be able to scrape those out and then go put that on top instead of holding on to those old gals that just haven't moved up the ladder at all. But in terms of the multifamily side, um, I think that like I'll give you an example is that I walked a 200 like almost a 300 unit a couple weeks ago, right? And I'm looking at it kind of who not how is kind of my motto for 2025, right? Like who I don't know how to buy 300 units, Mike, but I know that there's other people that do, right? And they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. They wake up in the morning, they're so if they can do it, why can't I? But maybe it's better for me to kind of hook myself to their wagon to see what value I can bring to them so that we can kind of come in together and tackle it arm in arm. But I remember, I've been buying rentals since I graduated college in '05, did a bunch of house hacking and stuff like that. And, you get experience, whether they're a C class or an A class, like tenants are tenants, rotted wood is rotted wood, old roofs are old roofs, right? It doesn't really matter if it's on an apartment complex or, some crappy 800 square foot house in the ghetto, right? And so I remember when I was walking this 300 unit complex in Tampa, I was looking around and I was like, this all makes sense. Like this is not something that's scary to me at all. If you each one is it's just a business of 300 little individual doors. I see old ACs. I see pools that don't have the proper fencing. I see inadequacies in the washer and dryer. In terms of like cords hanging down and things like this. Is just because it's a lot bigger than what I'm used to doesn't mean that I can just look at the individual problems. And I remember I walked out of there and I was like, I can buy this. Like I'm not intimidated by a 30, 40, $50 million project because it's just a bunch of little mini challenges that I've already faced, right? I've just faced them on a smaller scale, but an old AC is an old AC. So I think that is something where I saw it and I was like, if I can put all my energy where I can go to one property that has X amount of units and being able to really make a lot of decisions and choices very, very quickly is going to be so much better than just driving 20 minutes here and 30 minutes there, different neighborhoods, different tenants, different property managers, the whole nine.
Yep. So that you spend a fair bit of your time now looking for multifamily deals.
Yeah, that's where I'm spending a decent amount of time is being able to snuff out, getting on Crexy, getting on, trying to make relationships with brokers. I do think that there's going to be more opportunities to start getting maybe, pocket listings and things like that, whether it's direct seller or through brokers or not. So I think more than ever in 2025 is making relationships with brokers saying, hey, I'm here. I do have access to capital. I can close and then being able to leverage someone else's track record. So even if you've never bought a 100 unit before, you're like, I'm working, arm in arm with, person A that has bought 500 units and they have performed. Being able to have those discussions with brokers is, to me, is the most important thing right now I can do.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I know that there's going to start to be some deals that are shaking loose here because we were buying a bunch of them for a while. The past few
Right.
years, the deals are very few and far between,
Yeah.
the good deals, and you're often trying to like force them to work now, right? And
Yeah.
so, but I do think that unfortunately, there's going to be some people that are on the losing side of that, and some people that are on the winning side of that. But there will be some deals popping out here, I think, over the next, certainly over the 2025 and 2026 for sure.
We said that in 2024, and 2024 came and went, and not we were shaking the bushes, shaking the trees. Not many apples are falling down from it, unfortunately. But I think that maybe toward the back end, but it's all about making the relationships today, right? It's not once the blood starts hitting the street, and then you start reaching out to raise capital or to who not how find someone to hook your wagon to or reach out with brokers. You're already going to be too late because there's a lot of people sitting on the sideline right now waiting to kind of jump in. Some people are being proactive and they're getting ready, and then there's other people that are just sitting around watching Netflix, and they might as well stay watching Netflix when the blood hits the street if it does.
Yeah. So I know another thing that you've changed, and I have too, is to be, you know, less of a solo operator and more seeking partnerships. Obviously, we just talked about multifamily, so you're seeing them
Yeah.
there. I know you got a partnership with David and maybe some
Yep.
other folks as well. Just kind of share your thoughts on that pivot of like being the solopreneur, and then saying, hey, I need to find other people to align with.
I think it depends a little bit on your personality, for sure. Depending on what your role is, if you're a visionary, if you're an integrator, I think more and more we're constantly referring to rocket fuel as to like, what type of personality type you are. Are you a high D? Or where are you at on the disc profile, or whatever personality test you use. But for me personally, like I enjoy working with people, right? So I tend to gravitate towards working with at least one other person. I've learned a lot about being able to evaluate the person that you're going to work with. So, there's so many opportunities. I do think that with all of the virtual working together, right? It's like, Mike, me and you, let's say that we see a great deal and it's in Minnesota. And I'm like, hey, Mike, do you want to buy this deal in Minnesota? It's a great deal, right? And you're like, okay, cool. The numbers look great. I think there's going to be a lot of fallout from that because I'll see on Facebook groups, and it's like, hey, great deal here. Who wants to partner with me? And it's like, are you partnering because of the deal, or are you partnering because you like this person, you like their track record, you know their ethics, their morals, their financial background? And I think there's a lot of people that are going to make huge mistakes, not because the deal is not a good deal, quote unquote, that you partnered on, but because you got in bed with someone that you don't even know who they are. You're
Right.
not asking the right questions, right? You're not asking like, what happens? And I think one of the biggest challenges is what happens, Mike, when we buy that property in fill in the blank city, and in 5 years, right? Like you're in a different point of your life than I am, right? Like you may want to have a different, you may want to sell it in 5 years. I want to keep it, or vice versa. I don't think those conversations are happening enough. There's like, Mike, this is a good deal. You're like, yep, I think it's a good deal. You got the cash, right? Going 50-50 and done. So that's a big fear of mine. There's gonna be a lot of partnerships they're gonna end poorly.
Yeah. No, that's a common thing is people are going I think those posts that you see are financial. They're basically saying who can provide the financing because I
Yeah,
have the deal,
yeah,
right? And so on both sides, it's like, well, on the I guess kind of the person without the money, they're looking for somebody with money because they feel like it's hard to get money. And at some
right.
point, when you figure out how to attract money, it doesn't require 50% of the profit.
Yeah,
So then all of a sudden you're like kind of there's a little kernel of anger there that you're like, I gave up half my
resentment.
deal, and this
Yeah,
person's not even doing anything. And then on the other side, the person giving the money, they think that finding deals is hard, which it is. However, they also presume that that person's a good operator, which
right.
you have no way of knowing that. And most likely, if they're willing to give up 50% of their money, 50% of the deal for money, they probably also have a shortfall on skill set to be a good operator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's like getting married on the first date after you've been out of Vegas all night. It's like, there's going to be some regrets here.
Like buy him like a steak dinner first. Like don't just jump into bed, you know? Like I know that like with my partner David that you mentioned earlier, like I started off and I was wholesaling him deals. I literally wholesaled him deals for like 2 years, right? And then we're like, hey, this is kind of working. Why don't we start joint venturing, right? So we weren't partners, but I would give it to him at cost. So if I had the contract for 200K, he would get it for 200K. He would renovate it. And we would just split the profit on the back end, right? It's like kind of like dating to more seriously dating. And then a few things happened, and we ended up kind of coming arm in arm together and joined LLCs and all that. But we had like 3 or 4 years of like going on a lot of steak dinners together to see if we liked each other, and seeing when things went wrong, how that other person handled that rejection or handled that bad thing. And I think that just jumping in bed together and getting married in Vegas, after a wild weekend is probably not the best business model to make a quality partnership.
Yeah, with somebody do it right. So let's talk about kind of your network a little bit more. So I think there's been some evolution there for you and for me and probably
Yep.
everybody here. Just the power of your network, and not just from a partner standpoint, but those who
Yep.
you kind of surround yourself with. I actually just made a little meme yesterday that I put out, and it was the picture I put out on social media was I like it was like a bowl full of strawberries, and there was like one that was like really moldy, and it was kind of
Right.
spreading to the other ones, and
Yep.
I basically just made a comment about this, kind of saying like who you surround yourself with is contagious, whether it's
Yep.
success or success mindedness, or whether it's like somebody that is moldy, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we don't want the moldy strawberries, so they
No.
don't taste quite as good. I think networking is it's hard to quantify it, because sometimes you meet someone and then they introduce you to someone, and then you get like two or three levels past that, and you forget the person that originally met, introduced you. It's challenging because I think the biggest challenge that we all have in just succeeding in business is mindset, right? And mindset is like, Mike, it's like the least sexy thing to talk about on this podcast, right? Like no one gives a crap. Like a lot of people that are listening to this, they're probably high D, like let's go, let's start this company. And like, do not give me anything. I don't want to talk about mindset. I want to talk about the top 5 things that I need to get done right now to make my company successful. What's the best AI thing out there? Who's the best VA company? I'm not net interested in talking mindset. And as I've gotten older, it's like mindset is the only thing that matters, right? Like you can have all the best tools in the world, you can have all the best employees in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset and you don't have the right vision for where you need to go, or if you even know your vision at all, then you're screwed. Like you're never going to get past a certain level, and you're just going to bump your head against the ceiling. And for me, I've kind of had an epiphany. Is like, how am I going to change my mindset? if I still continue to hang around the same people that they're successful, but they're not going the same direction I am, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying they're wrong or right, but for me, I need to surround myself with people that are like, experiencing similar challenges, people that are above me, that are bigger, faster, stronger than like Clark. I was in your shoes 3 years ago. Like I was at a mastermind in Dominican Republic last week, and I was talking to a guy, and he was literally telling me all the problems that I had 8 years ago. And I'm like, listen, buddy, I already know how the story goes. I experienced all your problems, and just gave him like a couple tips to like kind of skip over some of those things.
Yeah.
And power of network is honestly so much more important than people think in terms of just like getting some business cards and maybe getting a tool or here or there. To me it helps to enable you to think bigger, to think smarter, to think more efficient, to think more effective. And you're just not going to do that with your current state of your friends and family that haven't done what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even if you have successful people in your circle of friends, they're not necessarily like if they're not entrepreneurs, they're like more of W-2
Right.
employees, whatever. I mean, that's great. Like they're not going to not be my friends, but
Right.
they're not going to be a source of inspiration for where I'm going either. Maybe they are in other ways, like family or
Sure.
health or whatever, right? But I think the important thing is to surround yourself with people that have done, are ideally where you are a couple of years ago, and they're a few
Right.
steps ahead of you, and they're very open minded to helping you get there because somebody's in front of them helping pull them up too.
But and that's exactly right. And the thing though is that I've learned is that like these people that were where I want to be, they're 3 years into the future or 5 years or maybe even behind me a little bit, but they've worked on some new ideas or techniques,
Right.
and I'm the old dog, right? I think that it's something where they're not going to just like DM you and be like, Clark, I'm you 3 years in the future, man. Let's just hop on a call. Let me just give you all my time. Like you have to you have to go out and you have to do a couple things. A, you have to get off your ass. Unfortunately, you're not going to find them through watching Netflix. And B, usually, Mike, you have to pay for it, right? Like I heard someone that said you have to pay for your friends. Like a mastermind, for example, is like you buy your friends. And I was like, God, that sounds horrible, man. That's so superficial to say that you buy your friends. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, shit, you're right. I'm buying friends, but I'm buying not to be in any of these rooms for the people in it. I'm buying for the people that I don't want to be in the rooms, right? Like I'm there to not to have a bunch of naysayers in the room saying, "Oh, that's risky, that's this, that's that." Why would you ever do that? Even though they've never done anything close to it. So unfortunately, these people are not going to just tap you on the shoulder while you're working on your laptop at Starbucks and say, "Clark, I already know your challenges. Let's sit down for 30 minutes." You're going to have to pay your way into these rooms. You're going to have to get on planes. You're going to have to you're going to have to drive. You're going to have to go do it on a Tuesday night. But that's the difference between someone that's going to be uber successful versus just, settling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about that because I run a mastermind, Invest for Fuel. And, I've had people say that to me, like, well, I have to pay to like pay for my friends. And I was like, well, no, I mean, you're kind of paying for access to knowledge, really. Right. And
Yeah.
so, but I think you said something there that's pretty valuable. That's you're paying for to not be in the room with certain people,
Right.
right? And so that's unfortunately one of the things that happens when you go to, not to knock like local RIA clubs and stuff like that, but if you go to free events, you get the people that are showing up for the free lunch, and they're not gonna, you don't want to be sitting next to that person. Your time
Right.
is not your time's not worth it, quite frankly. So it's just the exclusivity. And the other thing that I think for accomplished entrepreneurs is you can look at it as like I got to pay for access, but you're like a nugget hunter. You're like, I said that I say this all the time. I actually give people this advice when they come into our mastermind. Is like, look, you could fill a notebook here over the next few days, but what you really need to look for is like two or three things that you can implement as fast as possible
Yeah.
that are going to move the needle the furthest. So don't try to like implement everything because it'll never happen. So
Yeah.
just look for a couple of big things, some big aha moments that are easy to implement. And it's like, what is that worth? What is that worth to your business to just see these like you're going from stair steps forward in your business? I mean,
Right.
we've seen it over and over again with people that have come in and double or triple their business in like a year just from, being around the right people to ask the right questions or to see what's possible.
I think to double up on that is that enabling you to talk to that person that you were just talking about, and if they've already kind of been where you've been and they've experienced some of the challenges you have, and I'll give you an example. So we're building a house, right, and we're building it in St. Pete, And like everyone, they've got these permitting challenges, right? If you're out developing right now, especially after COVID, like everything was delayed. The interest on your loan just keeps ticking away, and the city doesn't give a crap how long it takes to issue that permit, right? And so I call my buddy, and he builds like 100 houses a year, and I say, hey, Michael, listen, man, I'm experiencing problems X, Y, and Z with the city. They're taking forever. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to shift a little bit. And he goes, Clark, he just said, stop. He goes, you just described like a regular Tuesday for me. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, huh. Okay, regular Tuesday. So it's not that big of a deal, right? Because to him, because he's out, he's doing bigger things. I just described like a regular Tuesday, right? Where to me, because it was newer to me and I didn't understand as well, I'm like, oh my God, are we not gonna be able to finish the build? Well, guess what, right? We ended up figuring out the challenge. We got it done and we finished it and we refinanced it, right? So it was like wasn't a huge deal. So it's like I want to constantly be, surrounding myself with people that tell me, Clark, this is just a Tuesday. Chill out. Stop worrying and run around like a chicken with your head cut off. But you have to be around those people, because if you're around the person that's built one house and they're experiencing the same things, or if you walk into a room with a bunch of fix and flippers that have been doing it for 1 year and they're like, this is hard. And I'm like, you're right, this is hard. Maybe I shouldn't do it. And they're like, oh God, sometimes I wish I could go back to my W-2, right? So it's like, I can't surround myself with those people, not saying I don't love them, but for me, selfishly, I've got to be able to buy myself into rooms where I'm the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah, that's awesome. Clark, if folks wanted to connect with you and like learn more about what you've got going on, follow your podcast, tell us a few links where they can go.
Yeah, so you can just, I would say the easiest way to get a hold of me is to just go to our podcast. You can follow us on all the social media stuff, YouTube. It's called Burn Your Boat's Wealth. And we put out a weekly podcast with like an interview style like this one, and then me and my partner each put out like a quick 10-minute snippet of just whatever's on our mind for the week. So, you can go subscribe to us. We appreciate it. And that's probably just the easiest way. And then, and just, DM us on Facebook or Instagram. That's gonna be the easiest way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing some time with us today and some of your stories.
Mike, listen, man, it's always a pleasure. Love seeing all your growth. And, let's get after this. 2025 is gonna be a big year of opportunity, but it's gonna require us all to get off our tail and shake some bushes, man. Let's do it,
buddy. One of the things that Clark just said is super valuable. It's like, sometimes we just have to push through where we're at. So I think, it's like, as time goes by here, you get better at solving problems. Like you get more efficient at solving problems, but you also just become more tolerant that it's like, this problem isn't as big as I once thought it was. Right. And so we just kind of get like our muscles get stronger at saying that, well, that weight used to be heavy and it's not that heavy now. That's just a normal Tuesday, or that's just, look, all you do is just kick it out of the way and move forward to the next problem. Right. And so I think if a lot of us just stayed focused and looked at our problems as just a stumbling block instead of a brick wall that you can't get through, a lot of folks that are listening to this right now would be further along in their careers. So it's just becoming more tolerant. Like don't wish, as they say, wait, you got it right there behind you, the Jim Rohn quote. Oh. Don't wish. That's from us too, right? That's from, is that an
you know where I got that from, Mike? That was from you.
Yeah. It's funny because I have that same one. I was like, that looks familiar. We have so many of these things. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. Jim Rohn.
There you go.
It's great. I think we didn't even need to talk for 30 minutes, dude. We could have just showed that campus.
Why a wise man sent me this in the mail, and ironically, it was from you and your team,
That's
Mike.
hilarious.
So, yeah. Awesome. I love that, man.
Well, great to see you as always, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Talk soon, buddy. See
and
you
everybody,
guys.
Have a great day. Keep pushing forward. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better.
Wish you were better. Amen.
See you guys in the next show.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.